Hello everyone, let's discuss today's The Hindu editorial page. The first article is Stocktaking Climate Finance, a case of circles in red ink. In this article, the writer says that climate finance plays a crucial role in retaining the trust of developing countries in future climate change negotiations. Issues related to climate finance are likely to be prominent at the Conference of the Parties, our COP28 meeting in Dubai, where the current temperature increase at 1.1 degrees Celsius is responsible for frequent hazardous weather. The developed countries and climate-vulnerable countries are likely to demand a ramping up of mitigation action by the developing countries, which is likely to be met with the demand that the developed countries have not been able to mobilize $100 billion climate finance. Developing countries are required to provide financial resources to developing country parties in mandatory terms under Article 9 of the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. Under the Paris Agreement, it is also mandatory for developed countries to provide information relating to the financial resources they have provided and the projected levels of public financial resources to be provided to developing country parties. At the Copenhagen Change Conference in 2009, developed countries made the commitment to mobilize $100 billion per year by 2020. At the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference in Glasgow in 2021, developed countries noted that they could mobilize only a total of $79.6 billion. The Paris Agreement is based on the self-determined efforts of all parties inscribed in the Nationally Determined Contributions (NDCs), which contain the mitigation efforts to be made by a party for the next 5 years. India has reiterated its demand for a just transition at COP27. As 3.6 million people in 159 districts in India are entrenched in the fossil fuel economy through direct or indirect jobs related to the coal mining and power sector. They will have to be supported with suitable economic opportunities and livelihoods. Unclear burden of climate finance is a significant challenge for developing countries, as it is essential to ensure that the global stocktake of climate finance is balanced and that the most vulnerable countries receive the necessary support to low-carbon, cleaner energy. The next article is Ethics, Parliamentary Conduct and the Indian MP. In this article, the writer says that the Lok Sabha Ethics Committee's proceedings against the All India Trinamool Congress Member of Parliament, MP Mahua Mitra, have sparked public debate. A senior MP from the Bharatiya Janata Party, Nishikant Dubey, filed a complaint alleging that Mitra had received money from a businessman for putting questions up in Parliament to promote his business interests. The Speaker then referred the complaint to the Ethics Committee for examination and a report. It is important to clarify that if an MP takes money for putting questions up in Parliament, they will be guilty of breach of privilege and contempt of the House. Such complaints are invariably referred to the Committee of Privileges for investigation. This committee, after a proper investigation, submits its findings in a report along with the recommendation for action against the MP in question. If a case involving illegal gratuity for conducting parliamentary work is proven, the MP may even be expelled from the House. There have been instances in the Lok Sabha where MPs were expelled on this ground. In the first case, in 1951, H.G. Mudgal, an MP of the Provisional Parliament, was found guilty of promoting the interests of a business association in return for financial benefits by putting questions up and moving amendments to a bill which affected the interests of that business association. A special committee of the House found that his conduct was derogatory to the dignity of the House and inconsistent with the standards which Parliament is entitled to expect of its members, but he resigned before being expelled. In 2005, a sting operation by a private channel showed that 10 members of the Lok Sabha accepted money for putting questions up in Parliament. A special committee was appointed which found them guilty of conduct unbecoming of a member and recommended their expulsion, which was accepted by the House. All the MPs were expelled. The Ethics Committee of the Lok Sabha is a relatively new committee set up in 2000, with a mandate to examine every complaint related to the unethical conduct of MPs referred to it and to recommend action. It was also tasked with formulating a code of conduct for MPs. Unethical conduct is not defined anywhere, and it is left entirely to the committee to examine a particular act of conduct and decide whether it is unethical or not. In one instance, an MP took his close female companion along with him on a parliamentary tour, personating her as his wife. The committee found the MP guilty of unethical conduct, and its recommendation was that he be suspended from 30 sittings of the House. He was also barred from holding any office in the House. In conclusion, the Ethics Committee's proceedings against Mahua Mitra have resulted in much public debate and controversy. If an MP takes money for putting questions up in Parliament, they will be guilty of breach of privilege and contempt of the House. The committee's role is to examine and recommend actions against MPs who accept money for parliamentary work. The next article is Welcome Assertion. Matters of defection should be taken out of the purview of the Speaker. In this article, the writer says that the Supreme Court of India has fixed a deadline for the Maharashtra Assembly Speaker to adjudicate on disqualification petitions against members who broke away from the leadership of the Shiv Sena and the National Congress Party, NCP. Speakers tend to treat disqualification issues with great reluctance or supreme indifference, deferring to their political affiliations. Despite being reminded of their duty to remain neutral and demonstrate a sense of urgency in dealing with questions arising out of the 10th schedule of the Constitution, presiding officers appear to place political loyalty above their constitutional duty. The Apex Court has asked Speaker Rahul Narikar to decide the disqualification petitions against Chief Minister Eknath Shinde's camp by December 31st and those concerning the NCP's breakaway group, headed by Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar, by January 31st, 2024. The directives follow a Constitution Bench decision on May 11, 2023, which was expected to be made within a reasonable period. The issue of whether a member has incurred disqualification is not a matter that can be dealt with leisurely or partisanly. Recent political history has seen ruling parties casually recruiting members of the opposition in several states without fear of disqualification, as they know that friendly speakers will not disqualify them. As long as the speaker is vested with the authority to adjudicate disqualification issues, it will be difficult to free matters of defection from the thicket of politics. The next article is from the Hindustan Times. The article is The Business of Climate Change. In this article, the writer says that the Rio Summit, which brought countries together to solve climate change, has become a crisis due to the rapid transformation of the climate and its impact on economic development. The response to climate risks must be an economic transformation, with governments, insurers, and companies struggling to find a response that catches up with the speed of calamities. In 2023, the hottest year on record, the impact on rainfall, agriculture, food security, and economic productivity is significant. The climate crisis is no longer a problem out there, but India Inc. now calls it the single biggest business risk. It impacts rainfall, agriculture, food security, and economic productivity. Rural incomes and fluctuating rural demand for FMCG companies are also affected by heat stress and its impact on outdoor labor productivity. The impact on hard infrastructure is worse, with billions of dollars at stake that might not be insured against nonlinear climate risks. For economic managers, climate impacts become a drain on limited fiscal resources when disaster relief diverts money from productive investments. Government procurement of infrastructure and new projects must demand that it is more future-ready to withstand the scale and intensity of shocks not experienced as normal in the past. To prepare for the worst using a calibrated approach, businesses should become more climate-focused, invest in localized geography-specific climate risk assessments, and ask for disclosures of climate risk exposure upfront. SEBI has already included environmental risk and emissions disclosure in its business responsibility and sustainability reporting (BRSR) format for top listed companies. There must be periodic climate stress tests for businesses, especially in vulnerable geographies. Finally, businesses should become more climate friendly, aligning products and services to tap into climate tech opportunities. According to research by the Council on Energy, Environment and Water (CEEU), the number of Indians employed in clean energy sectors increased by 47% between FY21 and FY22. For renewables, electric mobility, and green hydrogen, there is an investment opportunity of at least $500 billion until 2030. There is a market worth $50 billion for distributed renewables in the country. India now has the third largest startup ecosystem, contributing to over 7.46 lakh jobs. Businesses, institutions, and policies must empower climate-motivated younger thinkers to solve the problems of tomorrow and build businesses that can adapt to the future better. To be future-ready, business models must change with climate change.